Olá, pessoal, tudo bem com vocês? Finalmente chegou o segundo dia do nosso workshop, Job Interview. E para quem não assistiu, né, ontem, hoje a gente vai falar sobre entrevista de trabalho no mercado de inglês, né? Então, o objetivo do nosso workshop hoje é para eu conseguir te dar algumas dicas, né, do que você precisa saber. Lógico que não é exatamente o que vão te perguntar numa entrevista, né? Mas é só algumas dicas das perguntas mais comuns, né, que você pode se encontrar e como se preparar para ela, tá bom? Então, para quem não conhece, eu sou a Jéssica, eu sou coordenadora pedagógica no Centro Britânico de Santana, né? Não sei se todos vocês assistiram o nosso workshop ontem, que foi do writing emails, né? Escrevendo e-mails em inglês. Então, só para complementar a parte de e-mails, né? Então, hoje a gente vai fazer o job interview. Então, só para refrescar, né? A minha apresentação vai ser totalmente em inglês, né? Falando sobre o job interview. Então, é para quem realmente já tem um pouco de conhecimento. Não esqueçam que vocês podem interagir, deixem seus comentários, comentem, interagem quando for necessário. E no final a gente vai estar tirando todas as suas dúvidas. Se vocês precisarem de qualquer coisa, podem entrar no nosso site do Centro Britânico Unidade Santana e nos procurar que a gente pode tirar mais dúvidas se eu não conseguir tirar tudo aqui, tá bom? Então vamos começar. Let's start. Okay, so guys, the topic today, like I said, is job interview. Do you have an upcoming job interview? The question is, are you prepared? So before we go to a job interview, we always need to prepare ourselves for the questions that might be asked, right? So I like to say the best way to get, sorry, let me change my pen, guys. It's very thin. So the best way to get ready for an interview is to review the most common interview questions you will most likely be asked, along with examples of the best answers. So what does this mean? It means that you should check up on the internet, check what are the most common questions to be asked at a job interview and how you can answer the question correctly. Usually we get very nervous during a job interview, right? It's normal. And imagine in a different language, it's even worse, right? So let's avoid these nervous situations by preparing ourselves, okay? So knowing what you're going to say can eliminate lots of interview stress. Okay, like I said, it's very stressful when we don't know what we're going to be asked and then we don't know how to answer the question correctly, right? So guys, what questions to expect in a job interview? So I'm going to talk about questions about you. So I'm going to tell you what questions usually are asked. I'm not going to give you all the questions that are used, obviously, because it's impossible to know what each company is going to ask you, but the most common questions that most people ask, okay? Previous job or present job experience, right? Why you should be hired, the salary, your qualifications, work history, job performance, management and teamwork, and future intentions, okay? So I'm going to cover these topics in the explanation today. Okay, guys, so let's start. Questions about you. Usually the famous question would be, tell me about yourself. It's not a question, actually, it's a command, right? In this case, usually this question is used to break the ice. So as it can be very difficult to loosen up, although it can make the interviewer notice that you are what they need. So what do I mean by this? Be careful with what you say in this stage of your interview. Because when you talk about yourself, you should mention these three things. Talk about where you are now, discuss how you got where you are, and share your goals for the future. And not just talk about yourself, like who you are as a person. Okay, so it's important to mention who you are, obviously, but how you got there, your experience, where it all started, and where you are today. This gives the impression that you grew during a period of time, and it makes the interviewer realize that you are what they need, because if you grow, the company grows, right? So it's important. It's a very important question that you should think about how you're going to answer something like, tell me about yourself. Okay. I give you an example here of a person who was asked the same question, and this was the person's answer. Okay. So let's read together. When I'm not working, I like to spend time exploring with my dogs. I take them hiking, visiting historical sites, or even just walking around town. A surprising number of people are drawn to dogs, and I always enjoy talking with who I meet. I feel that communication is one of the most important aspects of my professional life as well. When talking to when talking with people, being able to guide the conversation is a particular direction in a particular direction is one of the ways I've been successful in different situations at the office, and I guess this is what makes it easier for me to communicate with people at work. So as you can see in this example, she talks about, or the person talks about, what they like to do and how their personal life has affected their work experience. So they don't talk about only themselves, they talk about their lives with working experiences. Okay, here I've commented it about this example. So as you can see here, sharing a seemingly unrelated fact. So she likes dogs. This answer also establishes that the candidate enjoys talking with people and understands the importance of communication, a valued skill in many roles. So as you can see, as the person spoke, this person mentioned what they like to do, but they also mentioned how their likes influenced their job. Okay, so it's very important to try to assimilate both things, the personal life with how you react at work. Okay. Um, the second question would be, what is your greatest strength? Okay, so here we need to be careful not to brag too much, right? So one of the main reasons interviewers ask this question is to identify whether your strengths align with the needs of the company and the job's responsibilities. Okay, so the goal of the interviewer is to make a match between your credentials and the skills needed to succeed in the job. So are you the person they need? This is the question. So your response will help the employer decide whether or not you are the strongest applicant for the position. Okay. So remember, if you're applying for an accounting job, it's not helpful to highlight that your strength lies in system analysis, for example. If you're mentioning things that are not going to help you with the job that you're applying for, it's unnecessary information that's going to make the person understand that your talent or your strength is in something else and not in what you're applying for. Okay, so it's very important to mention your skills and your experience, but try to relate how your skills and your experience will help you in the job that you're applying for. Okay, here is an example of an answer that the person was asked. So the same question was asked, what is your greatest strength? The person replied, I have a solid work ethic. When I'm working on a project, I don't just want to meet deadlines. Rather, I prefer to complete the project well ahead of schedule. 3 months ago, I even earned a bonus for completing my 3 most recent project 1 week ahead of time. So you can see that the person mentions that she mentions her previous experience that can contribute to the success of the job, and it's showing a good strategy here. It shows that the hiring manager why the person is qualified, because the person does things beforehand. Okay, so it's very nice to see that someone does things before expected, because this avoids a lot of complications in a workplace, right? Not that we have to do everything beforehand, but I mean, it's always good to have someone organized and that does things before, so that there's time to check if it's okay and to redo if it's necessary. So it's very important for, I think, for quality purposes, okay? A third question that is always asked is, what is your greatest weakness? Okay. When you're asked about your weaknesses, the employer wants to know whether you are qualified to do the job. The hiring manager is also looking for indicators that show you've been able to learn new tasks and handle new challenges. So this question is an opportunity to show that you've got the right assets for the job. Okay, remember that this isn't the part where they're going to judge you. Okay, because everyone has strengths and everyone has weaknesses. We can't be good at everything we do, but it's important to know what your weakness is so that you can work on it and make it less of a weakness, right? So in this section, it's important to discuss non-essential skills, because it's a weakness and it's not something that you're good at. So it's not something that you need to, when I say not essential skills, it's probably not related to the job that you're applying for now, okay? Mention skills you have improved, okay? Turn a negative into a positive. When I say a negative into a positive, I mean, try to show the person that you were bad at something or you were not good at something, but now you are better at doing it. So you've improved, okay? And show that you're self-aware. So when we show the person that we're self-aware, it means that we are showing the person that we know we need to better things. We know, we are aware of that. And that's very good, because when we have a weakness that we can't identify, how can you fix something? Well, how can you better something if you don't know that you're not good at it? Okay. So the first step to an improvement is recognizing your weakness. Okay, guys. So here's an example of this kind of thing. This kind of question, right? So when the person was asked, what is your greatest weakness? This was the person's answer. When I'm working on a project, I don't just want to meet deadlines. Rather, I prefer to complete the projects well ahead of its due date. While this means I never miss a deadline, it also means that sometimes I can find myself rushed when I'm working. I have since learned to slow down, be more patient, and have each project the careful attention, give each project the careful attention it deserves. Okay? In this response, it shows that meeting deadlines and getting the work done accurately are both important. So, not leaving out one or making one more important, but joining them both and saying, okay, it's important to follow deadlines, but it's also important not to rush and to do things properly. Okay? Because most of the time, sometimes we have so many things to do and we want to do everything, and we do everything in a way that we're rushing, and it ends up becoming, how can I say, a disaster. Like it's not properly done. So it's important to do things accurately, responsibly, and on time. Okay, like mentioned in the example here. Okay, guys, so now we're gonna focus on the next topic. So I've stated the 3 most common questions about yourself, okay? Now we're gonna talk about previous job or present job, okay? I chose 2 questions here. The first one is, why are you leaving your job, okay? Or why did you leave your previous job? Because maybe you're still working. So if you're still working and you're going for a job interview, you're probably looking for a better opportunity. So this would be the question they would ask you. Why are you leaving your job? But in other cases, like maybe you're unemployed and you're looking for a job, the question would be, why did you leave your previous job? Okay? In this section, you should come prepared to answer questions about why you're leaving your job or why you left your previous job. Okay, never focus on the past and on any negative experiences. Your answer should be open. Your answer should open the door to a discussion about the new position. Okay, so when you talk about your previous jobs, try to take everything that you learned, everything that you did, and make it sound positive and show that the experience you had in the previous place can add to the new job. Okay, so don't make it sound negative, even though the reason why you left might not always be the best reason in this world, but try and forget to mention, let's say, leave out these negative parts of your previous job. Okay. Here is an example. The person was asked why did they leave the previous job, and this was the answer. I found myself bored with the work and looking for more challenges. I'm an excellent employee and I didn't want my unhappiness to have an impact on the job I was doing for my employer. So, as you can see here, the potential employee um, didn't say anything bad about his former employer. The employer cast himself in a positive light by saying that his the dissatisfaction that he felt in the previous job shouldn't impact the former employer. So in this case, he's saying that because he got bored and he was unsatisfied, he was not satisfied, he was dissatisfied, sorry. And because he was dissatisfied with his job, he decided that he needed something more challenging, something that to boost him up. Because sometimes when we get bored of doing something, we do something like dragging ourselves, you know. So in this case, this is very nice to hear that the person noticed that they were not doing their best and they didn't want this to impact their job, so they decided to leave the company and look for something else. So I think this is a positive answer to a negative situation, right? Another question that you might be asked is, why should we hire you? This is a very important question, guys. Okay. So in this case, you need to be very careful with how you're going to answer this question, right? Over here, for example, when the interviewer asks you this question, he wants to know what makes you the best fit for the position. Your answer to this question should be concise, should be a concise sales pitch that explains what you have to offer to the employee. So you need to make sure you advertise yourself in this moment, okay? So a good tip for this point would be point out your strengths, okay, skills, and your qualifications, okay? And say how you can benefit the company, and always be positive, okay? So it's very important that you have a positive impact on when you're talking, okay? So you need to make it sound that like you're the best person to be hired for this job, okay? And when you point out your skills, your qualifications, and your strengths, you show the person why they should hire you and how your strengths and qualifications can benefit the company. Okay, so if you forget to say your qualifications, it sounds like you're not qualified. Why should we hire you? What do you have that we need? This is the question. So in this part, you need to make sure that you allow the interviewer to get from you what they need. Okay. So here's an example of a person that answered the same question. Okay. Based on what you've said and from the research I've done, your company is looking for an administrative assistant who is both strong in interpersonal skills and in tech skills. I believe my experience aligns and makes me a great fit. I'm an effective communicator who is skilled in giving oral presentations, speaking on the phone, and communicating via email. I'm also fluent in a number of relevant software programs, including content management system and spreadsheet suites. I'd love to bring my diverse skill set to your company. Can you see how complete this explanation is? I mean, the person says what they're good at, they mention their skills, they make the person believe that they are the one. Okay, I've commented here, the response makes a match between the requirements that the employer lists in the job posting and the candidate's qualifications and skill sets, showing the hiring manager why the applicant is a good fit for the job. So the most important part here is to make sure that you align what the job position needs and what you have to offer so that it matches. Because if they say they need a qualified person that is good with communication and that knows how to deal with software programs, and you have both of these things, it's very important to show the person that you know what the company needs and you have what they need, because it doesn't help for us to know what the company needs and not be qualified for that, right? So we need to make sure we align these two things so that we can make the person believe that, wow, this is what I need and that's the person I'm going to hire, okay? Another tricky question that might be asked is, what are your salary expectations, okay, or requirements? Usually this question is asked by the employer. Sorry, guys, let me just divide this word. Usually this question is asked by the employer, right? To have an idea whether they can afford your help or to see how much you value yourself and your work, okay? In most cases, it's good to show that you are flexible with your salary and that you are aware of your worth. So what does this mean? It means that you know that you're a qualified professional, you know how much you should earn, but depending on the necessity of the company, you're willing to negotiate, okay? So there's an agreement here, okay? So if you show the employer that you're flexible, the employer thinks about the possibility more, because if you're too expensive, he's not going to think about hiring you because he can't afford you, okay? So if you show the employer that you're qualified, you have what they need, but you're also flexible, they can try to negotiate an amount with you. But if you have a fixed amount in mind and you're not willing to negotiate, and you say, I want X amount per month and the company can't afford that, they're not going to bother trying to negotiate because they understand that you're not flexible. Okay. And make sure that it's in line with your qualifications. So when you ask for a salary, think about what you have and why you want that amount. Because it's no use if the company needs a qualified professional and you only have experience, but you're not qualified and you want to expect a high salary. It doesn't match. Okay. So you need to make sure that your qualification aligns with the salary that you're asking for and try to be flexible so that you stand a better chance on getting the job. Okay. Being flexible doesn't mean accepting the job. It means being open to hear what the company has to offer. Okay. So it doesn't mean you're going to take the job. It doesn't mean lower your prices either. But I mean, if you're flexible, you have more of a chance on getting a second opinion about the salary. If you have your opinion and the company has their opinion, together you guys can negotiate. If you're not flexible, you're not open for negotiation. So this makes it impossible. Okay. So keep that in mind. Here's an example of this question. So let's see what the person answered. My salary range is flexible. I would, of course, like to be compensated fairly for my decade of experience and award-winning sales record. However, I'm open to discussing specific numbers once we've decided the details of the position. So can you see that the person mentions flexibility, but also mentions that compensated fairly. So this means the person knows the qualifications they have, they value those qualifications, they have a decade of experience, and they have won awards. Okay, so they know their quality, they know their worth. Okay, but then again, however, they are open to discuss specific numbers. Okay, so this means they are open for negotiation, which this gives a good impression. Okay, so it makes the person realize that you're aware, you know how much you should earn, but you're willing to hear how much the company can pay, which is good. Okay, so as you can see here, the comment, this response works well for the candidate because it mentions that the applicant is well qualified for the job, but is also flexible regarding salary requirements, like I mentioned. So this gives a positive impression to the employer. All right. Another question that you might be asked about your qualifications would be, what applicable experience do you have? When they say what applicable experience do you have, they want to know what have you done before and how can you help the company today? Okay, so this question is always directed to know your background, your work experience, but you need to make sure that you relate your work experience to the position now. It's no use talking about hair. Like I used to cut hair at a fast food store. You don't cut hair in a fast food store. Okay, that's just a simple example here, guys. But it needs to have relevance. It's no use comparing or talking about experience that's not going to help you with the position that you're applying for. Okay, so here are 2 tips that I give you. Link past experience that can prepare you for the position. Okay, and also describe your responsibilities and accomplishments in details and connect them to the job you're applying for. Like I said, link them. Don't talk about distinct things because it's not going to make sense. It's not going to help you with the job that you're applying for. So try to link the experiences, take all your experiences that you have, think about the job that you're applying for, and use those experiences to help you trigger the job that you're applying for at the moment. Okay, here's an example of a person that was asked the same question. Okay, so just recapping on the question. What applicable experience do you have? The person says, I developed extensive skills working with customers, even when they were distressed. I'm excellent at finding a way to make the customer happy. Our customer satisfaction rating rose 10% at my previous employer. Since the role of your marketing department is to improve customers' impressions of the company, my experience would be a great aspect to your team. So, can you see that the person takes previous experience, links it to the job that they're applying for now? As you can see here, I comment. In this response, the candidate qualifies their success in a prior role by being specific. They give the interviewer proof of their ability to do the job. The candidate also explains how they could help the company if they were to be hired. So they mention how the experience they have can help the company at the moment. Okay, so like I said, it's important to link these two things. Don't talk about things that are not, that do not match, that do not link to each other. Okay, try to link your experience to the new job. A question that is always asked is work history. Okay, at this part of the interview, you are expected to know your previous jobs and mention details about each one of them. Okay, try to mention positive things here. You don't want to leave a bad impression. Okay, so you want to make sure that the person that is listening to you has a good impression about the experience you had in the previous companies that you worked at. Okay, so there are 4 tips that I give you here. Starting and ending date. So try to have that in mind when you started your jobs and when you ended them. Okay, the position that you had at the company name, and sometimes the address is important. They might ask you where the place was. Okay, and they also might ask questions about the supervisor or your coworkers. How was the team? How was your supervisor? These kind of things. Like I said, keep it as positive as possible. Don't talk about negative things that happened at the company. Okay, even though sometimes you want to share this experience, it leaves a negative impression because they might think, oh, so if something happens here, you're going to start sharing rumors about that company. Okay, so it's not a good impression. You're not going to leave a good impression if you talk badly about the people you worked with or the company you worked at. So leave, forget, exclude, okay, all the negative information and try to think of only the positive things that you can say about the company or the people you work with. Okay, this is going to help you a lot. Job preference. Okay, here they want to know how you performed in previous roles. Okay, and this can indicate how you will perform in the new job which you're applying for. So you have to be prepared in this case to talk about what you did well and what you didn't do well, okay? Because it's important to show that you know exactly what you're good at and what you're not good at, okay? And in this case here, you can see that I mentioned be careful about how you respond to negative questions. You can frame your responses in a positive manner, even when discussing a challenging situation. So, when you talk about things that you're not good at, it's important to mention that you are not good at it, but you're aware about it, and how the negative aspect turned into a positive aspect. Because there are some things that happen that are not good, but they make you a better professional in the future. Okay, so it's good to try to link these things, make them sound like accomplishments, things that happened, or that things that didn't work, that allowed you to learn from that experience so that you don't make the same mistakes in the future. Okay, so this is very important. This is a question that they might ask you when they talk about job performance. What do people most criticize about you? Okay, when they ask you this question, they want to know what do people usually have to say about you in a working place, right? So in this case, what they really want to know is how sensitive you are and how well you deal with criticism, okay? You should show the interviewer that you can be upfront about criticism and that you have faced criticism before, but not be nervous about this question or when answering this question, okay? Because it's not nice to talk about criticism, right? How people see you in that situation. And it's normal to be criticized. I mean, everywhere, every job that you work at, something is going to happen. Someone is going to criticize something. We cannot please everyone, okay? So keep that in mind. Take your negative points, take the criticism that people mention about you or when you are criticized, and try to talk about these things in a smooth way. Make sure that you show that it's not something that bothers you. It's not something that you take personal, because remember that when you're criticized in something professional, we cannot make this a personal matter. We need to be professional and deal with it in a professional way. Okay? So when we are criticized, we need to take that information, observe it, and try to better so that we are not criticized or we are less criticized. Okay, so make sure you are aware that it happens and make sure you know how to show that you can deal with criticism, all right? This is very important. Here's an example. There's no ongoing criticism. I'm open to personal and professional growth and welcome the opportunity to improve. Can you see here the person mentions that they are open to personal and professional growth? So this means that when people criticize, they accept this in a positive way because they are giving an opinion that can help them grow professionally or personally, okay? So sometimes it's good, okay? Not all criticisms are bad, all right? So keep that in mind. Here, the candidate answers the question in a way that lets the interviewer know that he or she doesn't take criticism personally, but instead looks at it in terms of professional growth. So that means that the person takes what they hear, now takes that criticism, and tries to apply it in a different and a positive way. Okay, so this kind of causes professional growth. All right, so keep that in mind. One of the topics that you might see as well is management and teamwork. Okay, I put 3 questions here that are the most common ones, but guys, there are more, right? So the first question is, are you a team player? The second, do you work well with others? And the third one is, do you prefer to work in a solitary environment or as part of a team? Okay. So in this part, guys, your work style and how you get along with others, including co-workers, managers, and customers or clients, is very important to all employers. So they ask you these 3 questions because they want to know how you deal with your coworkers, how you deal with other managers, okay? And how you treat customers. Because imagine if you don't know how to deal with coworkers or customers, this might mean that you could cause trouble in the company. All right? So keep that in mind. Another thing that they ask about is future intentions. Here I've chosen 2 questions that might be asked. What is your professional development plan? Okay. And the second one is, Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? These are the most common questions that are asked about future intentions. There is a list. But in this case here, the employers aren't only interested in your current skills and your past accomplishments. They want to know your plans for the future growth, okay? Therefore, when you're interviewing for a job, be prepared to answer questions about your professional development plan for achieving your career goals. Okay, because imagine you're at a job interview and the person is asking you what are your future intentions, and you kind of say that you're okay the way you are. That gives a negative impression because it means that everything that you have is enough. And when you're being interviewed, the person wants to hear that you're open for growth. So if the company needs to train you, you're up for it. If the company needs you to take some courses, you're up for it. Okay, if you need to study more, you're up for it. Okay, because I mean, this makes the company realize that you know you have qualifications, but you also know that you can become more qualified. Okay, so keep that in mind. Try to link what you have to what you're looking for, and try to use the company that you're applying the job for as a future intention to say that you want to grow in the company, because this also gives a good impression, right? Here are some tips. So outline your career path, discuss your interests in the job, and state your goals as results. So like I said, if you outline the career path, your career path, and you discuss your interests in the job, you're linking two things here. You're making the person hear and feel that what you want, the company has, and you want to grow inside that company, and you want to see results in the future. Okay, so this is very important. Here's an example of the question that we asked previously. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Okay, within 5 years, I would like to be recognized as an expert in terms of product knowledge, have developed very close relationships with clients, have significantly expanded my client base in my region, and perhaps have been assigned some major national clients. Can you see the person thinks big here? An answer like that shows that your desire for career growth doesn't need to occur inside of the job or the company. Okay, so you can see here the person mentions that they want this for themselves, but not necessarily the company has to invest in this. They want to accomplish these things by themselves. Okay, so this is also a good answer, because you're showing the person that you want more than what they are offering you. Okay, so that means that you're gonna run after what you need to get where you want to be. Okay, guys, basically that's the end of my presentation. It's the last topic of job interviews. I really hope that you guys liked the presentation and that I managed to help you with some things, some tips, okay? I know that it's not everything that you need for a job interview, but there are some useful tips here that you can use to add to your knowledge, okay? If you guys have any questions, any comments, or anything that you would like to ask, feel free to comment and we'll be answering all of your questions, okay? Thanks a lot for watching and for being part of this workshop. And if you liked the workshops that you've watched and you want some more, let us know in the comments as well so we can keep doing these workshops to keep you guys active, okay? See you guys and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.